The city of Houston can officially rejoice, and once they're done rejoicing the first time, rejoice again. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to L.T.A. It is your boy Alvin, and Kevin Durant is officially a Houston Rocket. Now, this is a much bigger deal than most people recognize, and because of how the news just dropped less than an hour ago, so we're going to quickly go through this trade, explain the details of the trade, as well as explaining who benefits the most and what it means for both teams, and also for the key players involved in the trade. Now, for those of you unaware, Kevin Durant was recently traded to the Phoenix Suns about an hour ago. The trade package was him to the Rockets in exchange for Jalen Green, Dillon Brooks, the number 10 pick in the 2025 draft, which doesn't look the best, and of course, 5 second-round picks. Now, when you consider what Kevin Durant was originally acquired for by the Phoenix Suns, this is somewhat of a show of how much his gameplay has basically deteriorated, and it's not deteriorated, but how different of a player he is from when he was originally traded. Mainly because in the original trade, we did see a bunch of first-round picks getting sent to Brooklyn alongside with Cam Johnson and Mikal Bridges, where Cam Johnson's still in Brooklyn, whereas Mikal Bridges has found his way over to the New York Knicks across, of course, the bridge. But that's not what we're focusing on. We are focusing on the key parts of this trade. Now, for Kevin Durant, firstly, this is a major improvement from his current situation. As those of you know, he was in Phoenix with Devin Booker and Bradley Beal in a situation whereby they didn't make it to the playoffs this season. Last year, they barely snuck in. And it's just a terrible look because they can't all seem to play at the same time. And even when they do, they don't technically win. And the Suns, generally as a roster, were terribly built in regards to how they surrounded themselves. They lacked big presence in the paint. And when it came to their ability to have a point guard, they only truly had one in Tyus Jones. Outside of that, they generally struggled. And it was a thing where Devin Booker played a lot more of the point guard role, which he shouldn't do because, as we know, he is your first option scorer. But in this case, they made it Kevin Durant to try and balance the team out, and it just never worked. So for KD, again, major improvement because he is going to a roster that I'm assuming the starting lineup might become a thing of Fred VanVleet. They might move Amon Thompson down to the shooting guard, in which case they would move KD to the small forward and bring Jabari Smith Jr. back into the starting lineup with Dillon Brooks being gone. And then obviously at the center, they will have Alperen Şengün. Big presence being that for KD, this goes back to him being the first option scorer on the team where he doesn't necessarily need to play as much defense or really help in the playmaking aspect of the game because that will be left to Fred VanVleet. And as I said, defensively, Amon Thompson and Jabari Smith Jr. both pick up the slack, which allows KD to not have to be the first or secondary primary defender on the ball handler. And yeah, it's a major improvement for him. And for the city of Houston, who benefits from this trade the most, those of you who watched them in the playoffs, specifically playing against the Golden State Warriors, they had a lot of droughts where they struggled, especially in Game 7. I remember in Game 7, I think it was in the third quarter, where we saw Amon Thompson basically contribute to like 16 of their 22 points or whatever it was in that quarter, which with him being the key defender on the team makes no sense. You'd have expected it to be someone along the lines of Jalen Green leading the scoring load, him or Fred VanVleet, allowing Amon to focus more on the defensive side of the ball and generally attacking the rim. So on their aspects, they really do improve because firstly, they get a knockdown scorer in Kevin Durant who can both spread the floor with his capable shooting ability off the catch or basically off the dribble. But they also get a versatile scorer in that he's not just a shooter. He has an ability to get to the rim, shoot at all three levels. And if you put him one-on-one against somebody, he's the type of guy you can really just give the ball to get a bucket, which is what they were desperately in need of in that Game 7. Because all jokes aside, had they had an efficient scorer who they could depend on, they would have knocked off the Warriors and most likely than not would have made a push to fight the Thunder in the conference finals. Now, a big picture thing here is we got to look at the other side of the trade, which happens to be Jalen Green, Dillon Brooks, the number 10 pick in this year's draft, and of course a few second rounders. This is the perfect example of Jalen Green's stock being in the mud. What I mean by that is in October last year, we of course saw Jalen Green sign a 3-year extension on his rookie contract for $106 million. This was the Rockets' way of basically saying we're investing in you in the future, and we expect you to be the leader of this team. However, if you look at how Jalen Green performed throughout the season, it was a showcase of he's not meant to be the guy for this team. First off, he had a drop-off in points going from 22.1 to 17.3. Shooting efficiency-wise, he hung around, improving his three-point percentage to 34 from 33.8 in the previous season. And field goal percentage-wise, he had a notch better at 42.6 versus the 41.7% of the previous season. However, he was down in rebounds from 3.7 to 3.4 and down in assists from 3.7 to 2.6, whilst also being down in steals from 0.8 to 0.7. If anything, this year showed a major regression from Jalen Green across the board, outside of the slight improvement in the shooting percentages. And when it came to the playoffs, that was the nail in the coffin, to sort of say, because in this year's playoffs, which was our first time ever seeing him in the postseason, in 7 games, Jalen Green basically managed to go for 13.3 points, shooting about 37% from the field, 29.5% from the three-point line, 67% from the free throw line, which is really bad, whilst averaging about 5.4 rebounds, 2.9 assists, and 0.6 steals. The only field we saw him really improve in when it came to the postseason was rebounding a little bit better, but again, I really do count that down to with how he knew he was slacking on every other aspect. He was just crashing the glass because, hey, you got to show some effort somewhere. So this season, especially the playoffs, was a key sign to the Rockets that he's not going to be their guy. He's not an efficient scorer, even with the ability he does have in a really good frame for a guy at his position. With athleticism that's sort of out of the gym, it just showed he wasn't the guy for them. If anything, it showed more that Amen Thompson was more dependable than he was. So it was quite obvious that before the next NBA season, it was suspected that Jalen Green would get traded. And the big suspicion was he was going to get traded for Kevin Durant, which we've now seen. Now, the reason I say it shows a tank in his trade stock is Dillon Brooks was never someone people wanted to get traded from Houston. But it makes sense that he was thrown in this package because from the side of Phoenix, what would you want? You've already got Devin Booker, who of course you say is your guy, but you've been slacking for him. So if you were going to take a trade to get rid of Kevin Durant, which was something that was in your future, because first off, you need to offload KD, and then the second offload will be Bradley Beal's also most likely getting sent. But if you're going to get something for it, firstly, you'll get Dillon Brooks, which for Devin Booker's side, it shows a little bit of a commitment to improving the team. He is a two-way player who, as much as people love to make the jokes about go to China and all this stuff with Dillon Brooks, he is a really good player on both sides of the ball. He has an ability to score, which we've seen both in international play and generally in the regular seasons and the postseason. And then defensively, he always does play a key matchup when guarding either the best or second best option on the other team. Now, when it comes to Jalen Green, I really do believe this is a thing of the Suns just took him on for the sake of we're offloading Kevin Durant. More likely than not, I expect the Suns to give him this season to like really showcase. They'll most likely move D-Book down to the point guard and let Jalen Green roam at the 2. And the key thing would be just showing how he's improved, how he's a better player, basically getting his trade value back up, in which case the Suns can trade him as well and possibly acquire something better. However, again, that does depend on Jalen Green performing this year, which, I don't know, maybe him getting sent to the Suns will just be what he needs to improve. But the next thing we need to talk about in this trade is the Phoenix Suns. Now, obviously, they do get the number 10 pick in this draft, which I expect to mention the NBA. He has ace band. He actually wants to pick a position where he can end up with a team gets time himself. But back to this, the 10th pick is expected to come from Arizona. Unfortunately, I did not watch much Arizona basketball this year whilst watching college basketball, so I can't give you a real opinion on how I believe he'll fit in with the team. But more likely than not, this is just a pick that will be secured, used, and executed. But if I'm the Suns, they might trade it as well in order to get someone else. Like, the big thing for the Suns at the current moment is they're trying to show to Devin Booker that they're dedicated to improving and being a competitive team, because he is in the process of chasing a ring. Devin Booker is someone that really wants to win, and for him, winning is getting a ring. The one thing I might see happen from the Suns is they might have traded for this pick and Jalen Green, as well as Dillon Brooks, because they're going to try and make a package to trade for Giannis Antetokounmpo, which, in my personal opinion, would be the perfect suitor to fit in with this team, especially because we've seen that surrounding Devin Booker with shooters, it works, but he needs someone who really forces defenses to collapse, which is Giannis. So I wouldn't be surprised if very soon we hear the Phoenix Suns are also involved within trade arrangements to hopefully get Giannis Antetokounmpo from the Milwaukee Bucks. But hey, anyway, hopefully you guys enjoyed today's video, which if you did, don't forget to hit that like button and drop a comment below. And if you're new to the channel and you ain't done so yet, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. We upload regularly. Anyway, I'll catch you in a bit. Deuces.